Howdy there, friends, family, adversaries, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary folks. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Riley Constantine, and today we are discussing the controversy involving Taskmaster and Marvel Studios' Black Widow. In this video, we will be diving into the way in which Taskmaster was adapted into the recently released Marvel Studios film, why people are mad about it, and why I ultimately think the controversy is overblown. Additionally, this video essay will feature plenty of spoilers surrounding Taskmaster's character arc in Marvel Studios' Black Widow, so if you have not seen the film, proceed with caution. But with all that out of the way, this should be a good episode. So without further ado, here we go. The internet is in an uproar after watching Taskmaster's portrayal in Marvel Studios' Black Widow. In the recent Marvel Cinematic Universe adventure, Taskmaster, i.e. the somewhat popular Marvel Comics supervillain, was given a live-action debut that was poorly received by many comic book fans. The crux of this fan disappointment is in how Marvel Studios' Black Widow adapted and changed the character. See, in the comics, Taskmaster is a C-list supervillain with a cool costume design and a neat power set. He can perfectly mimic the non-superpowered combat techniques of various Avengers and other Marvel Universe big shots, which is pretty cool. But Marvel Studios' Black Widow fundamentally alters the character. The film gender swaps Taskmaster into being a woman, the character's origin is fundamentally different, and her costume design is muted on a creative level. Cue the fan outrage and blood for the almighty YouTube algorithm, may it live forever. Taskmaster's changes rubbed many comic fans the wrong way. To them, the movie's incarnation of Taskmaster is too much of a departure from the source material, whether it be the less colorful costume design, the character's different origin, or even the fact that she is a woman now, though let me stress, I think most critiques have more to do with the former two reasons than the latter, though there are some exceptions. They strongly oppose this new version of Taskmaster. From their point of view, these changes differ so much from the source material that she might as well be an entirely different character, a character that is not Taskmaster. I overall disagree though. While I understand the criticism that the character is far removed from the source material, hell, I still complain about Green Lantern, and that movie technically hasn't physically hurt me since it came out 10 years ago, these critiques ignore how the Black Widow movie's new Taskmaster absolutely embodies the themes of the narrative. Like a tight glove or a used condom at a frat house, Taskmaster fits the movie's core thematic point perfectly. She reflects the film's thesis statement and is overall incredibly important to the development of the main character Natasha Romanoff and highlights the villainous qualities presented by the antagonist General Dreykov. And despite a lack of screen time, which is a worthwhile criticism FYI, Taskmaster is a key narrative and thematic facet of the film. She works. This becomes clear when understanding that Marvel Studios' Black Widow is a feminist Me Too era movie to its core. It has a lot of girl power moments where cool, capable women beat the shit out of hapless minions and engage in a conflict that revolves around overcoming toxic masculinity. The most notable of these conflicts comes in the form of the main villain General Dreykov, who is a misogynist that wants to control an army of super capable women and use a chemical compound that overwrites their identities and erases their sense of free will. For his benefit alone, he dominates these women for the sake of empowering himself and increases his own political influence in a way that is akin to Harvey Weinstein, and he ultimately disposes of these women when they inevitably outrun their usefulness. Furthermore, Dreykov's gross need to dominate women extends to the villain of Taskmaster as well. In the movie, Taskmaster is Dreykov's daughter, a girl who survived a bomb blast and developed the ability to mimic any combat maneuver via a thumb drive insert that uploads new strategies into her brain as if it were the Matrix, and Dreykov uses her to his advantage. He erases Taskmaster's free will, and despite how he is her father, Dreykov transforms her into his most high-profile operative. Blood relation be damned. Taskmaster is representative of Dreykov's misogynistic ideology. Like all the women under his control, Taskmaster has no free will and no personal agency. If anything, Dreykov only values her functionality. He only sees a body that he can use to his own ends. Nothing more. Further reflecting the themes, Taskmaster's costume design represents how her free will was stolen from her. In the comics, Taskmaster's supervillain outfit was striking. It incorporated visual aspects of other Avengers like Captain America's shield or Hawkeye's bow, and topped it off with a white skull and a hooded cape. But in Marvel Studios' Black Widow, Taskmaster's costume is far more creatively subdued. The colors are comparatively muted and their whole aesthetic seems robotic. They are more like a machine than a person, kind of like Darth Vader or Mark Zuckerberg. The costume definitely befits the film's themes. As a villain, Dreykov stole Taskmaster's identity, and her costume represents this sad fact. The lack of visual pop and the dull colors showcase a woman whose humanity was ground down to a pulp, a woman who is just a vessel meant to serve her overlord. And in this regard, the costume fits. It is devoid of any personality and identity, much like Taskmaster herself. This is ultimately why the Taskmaster criticisms in regards to Marvel Studios' Black Widow irk me. Directed at the differences between the Taskmaster in the source material and the Taskmaster in the film adaptation, the complaints surrounding Taskmaster ignore the substance of her new characterization. The critiques focus on the stylistic changes, like the alterations to her costume, origin, and even her gender in some cases, even though these character modifications overall benefited the movie's story and thematic messaging. Upset over her new makeover, many fans ignored the merits of the movie's version of Taskmaster. They ignored how she depthfully fit the narrative's salient point about feminism and misogyny because they felt blindsided by this new Taskmaster. Admittedly, these agitated comic fans shouldn't have been so shocked. After all, Marvel Studios has a history of reworking characters to an extreme degree, whether through the Mandarin's comedic reveal in Iron Man 3, or Ghost's gender swap and sympathetic disability themed storyline in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Marvel Studios has revamped characters in the past in order to have them fit a given narrative's themes, and Taskmaster was no exception. With Taskmaster and the rest of these characters, the company repeatedly upended convention. They eschewed fidelity and accuracy to the source material, and specifically repurposed these characters to belong in whatever narrative the storytellers were conveying. When Marvel adapted characters like Taskmaster, they literally adapted them to suit the story, a fact that is especially ironic given Taskmaster's superpowered nature. See, Taskmaster is adaptable. As a character, Taskmaster's entire power set revolves around adapting to their surroundings. In the comics and in the movie, Taskmaster mimics various maneuvers and fighting styles depending on the combat situation. In other words, they adapt. And this is just like how Marvel Studios adapted Taskmaster to strengthen Marvel Studios' Black Widow's, God that's a mouthful, overall narrative. With these changes, Taskmaster is perfectly in sync with the movie's overall thematic message surrounding feminism and the volatile nature of misogyny. She now has far more meaning. And with the movie, Taskmaster is so much more than just having a cool costume design and having a neat power set. She is now a complete person. Alright, that was the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like rating and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell so that you're notified for whenever I post a new video. Also, come check out my Patreon. I write written versions of these videos on there. Link is in the description. And speaking of Patreon, I just want to thank my patrons, especially my high tier ones, in Mom and David Devlin. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.